What happens when a country fed up with unfair trade practices decides to turn off the lights on its biggest neighbor? Imagine a looming crisis above North America, as tensions escalate between Canada and the United States over energy, trade, and tariffs. Ontario's Premier, Doug Ford, recently threatened to impose a hefty 25% surcharge on electricity exported to the U.S. This isn't just another political jab, it's a warning shot in a brewing storm. As of March 27, 2025, new Prime Minister Mark Carney boldly declared the end of an era marked by old-fashioned closeness with Washington. Critics dismissed it as mere political grandstanding ahead of elections. However, whispers in the corridors of power suggest a radical shift is underway. How long can this friendship withstand the mounting pressure of trade disputes? The promise of "we will not back down" reverberates across Canada, igniting a wave of pride and uncertainty. What if this confrontation were to spiral into a full-blown energy and trade crisis? Recent statistics reveal that Canadian crude oil exports to the United States are set to exceed $70 billion in 2024. That's a staggering amount, making up nearly a fifth of all U.S. oil imports. But the bond doesn't end there. Canada also supplies around 9 billion cubic meters of liquefied natural gas, LNG, to the U.S. annually, making its gas vital for energy stability in many regions. As Carney ominously stated, these resources are powerful bargaining chips in a trade showdown. On March 28, questions buzzed on social media: could Ottawa really cut energy exports in retaliation for unfair tariffs? If the electricity flow were to be stifled, costs would skyrocket in northern U.S. provinces. An unnamed official hinted at reviewing trade terms, amplifying anxiety in Washington. Could a Canadian decision to curb electricity exports disrupt American life and industry? This question lingers ominously in political discussions. But it's not just energy at stake. The Canadian automotive sector, which exported over $30 billion worth of vehicles and parts to the United States in 2024, is deeply intertwined with its neighbor's economy. Now, Carney's rhetoric hints at raising tariffs and reshaping supply chains, suggesting that past agreements could become relics of a bygone era. If additional tariffs hit manufacturers like Tesla, consumers may find themselves facing unforeseen price hikes. As discussions heat up, the agricultural sector is watching with bated breath. The U.S. relies heavily on Canadian imports: wheat, meat, even dairy, valued at nearly $45 billion in 2024. During his parliamentary address, Carney warned that the agricultural handshake could also turn into a fist. He alluded to a potential for new taxes, asserting that Canada's hand is far from weak. These developments underscore the immense scale of trade between the two nations, with bilateral exchanges surpassing $900 billion. As Carney intensifies diplomatic outreach towards European and Asian markets, he poses a tantalizing question: is Canada preparing to break free of U.S. economic shadow? The clash of titans will only get fiercer. With each passing day, the narrative twists, raising questions about what the future holds for North America's intertwined fates. Are both nations ready for the potential fallout of this high-stakes game? On March 27, 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney boldly asserted that Canada holds a powerful leverage against a key neighbor imposing unilateral tariffs on its goods. This has sent shockwaves through the intricate web of trade between Canada and the United States. With a steadfast tone, Carney emphasized Canada's readiness to explore alternative markets for energy exports, marking a potential shift in the long-standing relationship with the U.S. But the big question looming over this diplomatic brinkmanship is: could Canada really sever the energy pipeline, and what would that mean for America? In 2024, Canada exported an astounding 65 terawatt-hours of electricity to its southern neighbor, which accounted for around 20% of consumption in several U.S. regions. Canada, blessed with abundant hydroelectric resources, offers electricity at bargain prices. As discussions intensified on March 28, online conversations surfaced speculating whether Canada would indeed cut off these critical exports as retaliation against rising tariffs. Could this action trigger skyrocketing energy costs in northern U.S. cities already grappling with energy demands? Tensions erupted when an unnamed official hinted that Ottawa is reviewing all terms of trade, including electricity. This announcement ignited a flurry of speculation among analysts, would Canada's energy weapon significantly disrupt U.S. production and daily life? The silence from Washington grew louder as panic settled into corridors of power, suggesting that an unexpected twist in the energy saga may be on the horizon. But energy isn't the only battleground. Canada's automotive ties to the U.S. create an equally complex relationship. In 2024, Canadian automotive and parts exports exceeded $30 billion. Many components made in the U.S. travel north for final assembly in Canada, making both economies mutually dependent. As Carney hinted at potential tariff increases to reshape this supply chain and declared that deals of mutual interest were over, the automotive sector was rattled. The abrupt withdrawal of tax incentives for U.S. electric car manufacturers only fueled the fire. Rumors began to swirl that additional tariffs were imminent, potentially targeting iconic brands like Tesla. If new tariffs come into play, experts predict a sharp rise in production costs that could reverberate throughout the automotive market and ultimately impact consumers. Carney threw the gauntlet down, stating this escalating situation was not Canada's burden to carry alone. Meanwhile, in the agricultural domain, the stakes are no less critical. Canada remains one of the U.S.'s largest agricultural partners, with trade nearing $45 billion in 2024. Should Ottawa retaliate with new taxes or export restrictions, American consumers might face soaring prices, causing major concern in farming communities that rely on Canadian resources for their livestock. As Carney asserted, no sector is shielded from the fallout of this tangled trade framework. The situation continues to evolve rapidly, and every statement from Ottawa sends ripples of anxiety across both nations. With total trade exceeding $900 billion in 2024, the fragility of this financial partnership is becoming alarmingly clear. On March 29, Carney reiterated a chilling message: there are no guarantees left. Every move from Canada signals a willingness to escalate tensions dramatically. As he charts a course toward diversifying trade channels with Europe and Asia, the question remains, is Canada truly ready to step out of the shadow cast by a neighbor that has taken its relationship for granted? The future of North American trade hangs delicately in the balance, and only time will reveal who will prevail in this game of economic chess. Not long ago, Canada slashed tax incentives for electric car makers in the United States. Rumors quickly spread extra tariffs might soon hit major automakers, including giants like Tesla. Experts warn this could push production costs sky high and force consumers to pay the price. But Canada insists that's Washington's problem, not ours, they say, tossing the blame back across the border. That's just one slice of this escalating conflict. When it comes to agriculture, Canada stands as one of America's largest trading partners. Together, they move nearly $45 billion worth of goods every year. The back and forth includes wheat, canola, meat, and dairy. On March 27, 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney sent a clear signal during a Parliament speech, a warning that new taxes on these vital products might be coming. He insisted, "Do not underestimate our strength in agriculture." The numbers speak volumes. Canadian canola seed exports to the U.S. hit around $6 billion in 2024. If this supply stream suddenly dries up or faces restrictions, American markets could see shocking price surges. Imagine the ripple effect: livestock farmers struggling as feed grows scarce, causing major disruption for U.S. producers. This trade war is shaping up as a brutal clash where no one plans on backtracking. Carney's words, "We won't always be the losing side," resonate strongly across Canada. Think about it: America spends hundreds of billions buying from Canada each year. On March 29, 2025, major American news outlets reported Canada's oil exports rank among the largest U.S. imports, right alongside automotive goods. In 2024, total U.S. imports from Canada topped a staggering $460 billion. What's more, Canada doesn't just ship raw materials, they export high-tech, high-value products too. This intricate web of trade means a sudden disruption could shake both economies to their core. Carney didn't hold back. On March 27, he made a sharp threat: "Our interdependence runs too deep to be toyed with through unilateral tariffs." His demand for fair trade echoed through official U.S. statements the same day. But despite talks, no breakthrough has been reached on Canada's retaliatory tariffs yet. The auto tariffs imposed by the previous U.S. administration are just the spark in a powder keg long ready to explode. As the battle lines harden, the question lingers in the air: how far will this escalating trade war go before the entire fragile balance collapses? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the tension is palpable. Will diplomacy find a way, or will both giants spiral into an economic storm with devastating consequences? The clock is ticking, and the world watches as Canada and the United States edge closer to a full-blown showdown. As tensions rise between Canada and the United States, a complex web of interdependence is on the verge of unraveling. On March 27, 2025, Prime Minister Mark Carney declared that the era of established closeness was over. Many thought it was mere political posturing. However, Carney's statements hinted at a bold new approach. Canada holds significant cards in the realms of energy, automotive, and agriculture, crucial sectors underpinning this bilateral relationship. But could this bold strategy backfire and ignite an economic battle that puts the entire North American market at risk? With recent announcements of harsh tariffs on energy exports, Carney's determination to renegotiate the terms of trade has sent shockwaves across the continent. As Canada prepares to impose a staggering 25% surcharge on electricity sent to the U.S., questions loom large. How will this energy standoff impact everyday Americans reliant on Canadian resources? In 2024 alone, Canada exported over $70 billion worth of crude oil to the U.S., which accounted for nearly one-fifth of American oil imports. The implications are chilling as Ottawa threatens to shift these crucial supplies. As Carney flexes his muscles, U.S. officials remain silent, though voices from the American energy sector raise alarm. The specter of skyrocketing electricity prices looms, particularly in northern states that depend on Canadian hydropower. Could the upcoming negotiations cause instability just as critical as that unfolding in the automotive industry? Currently, more than half of the 1.8 million vehicles produced annually in Canada are shipped south of the border. Any disruption here could shake the foundation of American manufacturing. On March 28, 2025, the stakes intensified. Carney bluntly stated, "We are not the ones who will be bullied." Canada's crucial role as a supplier of agricultural products, worth around $45 billion in trade annually, is also at play. Will Canada leverage tariffs that could send grocery prices soaring in U.S. supermarkets? Experts warn that any disruption could have devastating effects on food inflation and livestock producers across the nation. As the negotiations unfold, the question arises: who will dominate this showdown? Carney's administration is exploring new trade partnerships in Europe and Asia, seeking to diminish Canadian reliance on the U.S. market. Could this shift signify a broader rebalancing of power on the global stage? Amid all this, Ottawa's use of energy as a bargaining chip could lead to a staggering increase in electricity costs, further escalating tensions. How long can the fabric of this trade relationship hold before threads snap and consequences unfold? The clock is ticking, and both nations are braced for a contentious fight over trade policies. Will Canada truly cut off its electricity exports and shake the very foundation of U.S. industries? Or will this bold move merely reveal the vulnerabilities within a seemingly solid alliance? As uncertainty rises, the ramifications of this standoff could ripple far beyond North America. On March 28, a ripple of tension surged through the automotive sector as Prime Minister Carney firmly stated, "We won't remain stagnant in the face of unfair pressures." With Canada producing around 1.8 million vehicles annually, and over half destined for the U.S. market, the stakes are sky-high. An alarming realization settled in: if Canada retaliates with tariffs on parts imported from the U.S., Detroit's factories could face significant disruptions. Can you imagine the echoing sounds of assembly lines grinding to a halt as frenetic activity transforms into stifling silence? Just a day later, Carney hinted at potential new tariff increases, emphasizing the need for equitable treatment in their long-standing business relationships. His declaration sparked minor fluctuations in automotive stocks, amplifying uncertainty in the financial markets. The clattering of stock exchange numbers echoed a growing concern: who would suffer more as tensions escalated? Even more pressing was the agricultural dimension intertwined with this brewing conflict. Canada is a crucial supplier of staples like wheat, meat, and dairy to an insatiable U.S. market, with exports expected to reach $5 billion in 2024. What if Ottawa retaliated? Would the shelves in American supermarkets see empty spaces and soaring prices? On March 28, an agricultural lobbyist warned, "Our farmers rely on Canadian raw materials. Disruption could lead to food inflation spiraling out of control." As the sun rose on March 29, Carney conveyed an unsettling message: no area is guaranteed. Not even agriculture. This signaled a willingness to escalate tensions further. The rapid shift in rhetoric revealed the magnitude of trade that exists between Canada and the U.S. An estimated $900 billion defines their bilateral trade in 2024, ranking it as one of the world's largest. Yet, this recent crisis exemplified how delicate this expansive web of trade can be. Carney effectively confirmed a seismic shift in Canada's trade strategy, setting sights on European and Asian markets. Unilateral tariff decisions slow progress, he noted, simultaneously implying that Canada is on the hunt for new horizons. What shaking consequences could these shifts bring into play? As the wheels of trade turn ever closer to a potential crisis, the real question remains: will either side be able to bear the brunt of these retaliatory maneuvers? The throbbing tension in the air rings loud and clear as both nations brace for impact. Continuing from the fragile underpinnings of Canada-US trade and Mark Carney's bold pivot towards European and Asian markets, fueled by claims that unilateral tariffs are stifling growth, precisely why Ottawa is scouting fresh horizons, the stage is set for Ottawa's defiant maneuvers. Imagine the icy snap of tension in the air, like a frozen spring morning in Ontario, where the promise of European deals with France and the UK whispers of energy alliances and autopart collaborations. Could that even slash America's market dominance? Shocking whispers in the European press suggest joint production lines might steal the spotlight, leaving Washington's grip weakened as of March 30, 2025. Feel the electric buzz of leaked Ottawa plans, with April 2 retaliation tariffs looming over automotive metals and agriculture, a metallic taste of upheaval in every negotiation breath. Yet, on the energy front, the scent of untapped global alliances lingers, crisp and promising, as Carney declares we're exploring alternatives everywhere because trust in partners has evaporated. Will Canada really yank the plug on those vital energy flows to the U.S.? Social media floods with this biting question, the digital hum echoing like distant thunder. Even cautious U.S. officials admit it was a grave blunder by the Trump administration to ignite such fury. Can the wounded pride of North America heal, or will divisions rip defenses wide open? Picture the stark reality: America craves Canada's energy like a parched traveler yearns for a hidden spring, but Ottawa risks forfeiting its colossal market. A gamble that sends shivers through integrated auto chains where disruption feels like grinding gears in Detroit factories. And agricultural staples? Feel the earthy crunch underfoot, wheat and canola fields stretching like battle lines, where tariffs could inflate U.S. supermarket prices to dizzying heights. As Carney warns no guarantees hold in farming, the texture of escalating chaos brushes against bordering states, clinging to jobs from cross-border commerce like a lifeline in stormy waters. Retaliation after April 2 threatens to rock both nations economically and politically, a seismic quake where short-term pain promises long-term sovereignty. Is this defiance mere political theater, or will it unleash irreversible turmoil? As observers ponder Canada's gamble, the bitter chill of lost trust looms. How will Washington retaliate and reshape this precarious alliance? In the shadow of brewing economic storms, a bold shift emerges. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney declares that short-term losses are tolerable to safeguard long-term independence. Yet, skeptics warn that this fiery rhetoric, while rallying domestic support, might unleash unavoidable turmoil. How will Washington strike back? Can you feel the electric crackle in the air, the guttural roar of machinery grinding to a halt? What if Canada's energy arsenal doesn't just jitter the U.S., but humiliates Washington by exposing decades of vulnerability? As tempers flare and trade alliances tremble, here's where the drama ignites anew. The White House's initial retorts echo like thunderclaps across the continent. On March 29, 2025. Officials whispered of considering all options to counter unfair practices. This came as a sobering shock, especially after a newsflash claimed the Trump administration pondered harsher tariffs. Unconfirmed yet? Absolutely. But Ottawa? Defiant, their fires stoked hot, proclaiming they've got plenty more arrows in the quiver. Will diplomacy prevail, or will a raging trade war erupt, its flames licking through industries like wildfire? Prime Minister Carney left the door slightly ajar. On March 27, 2025. He uttered, "I'm open to dialogue, but unilateral demands? Unacceptable." Such standoffs between these neighboring giants have historically birthed grueling negotiations and fleeting crises that paralyzed sectors. Could this mark the dawn of North America's rebirth? With Carney's pivot toward Europe and Asia, forging fresh energy and auto ties? Seismic shifts loom not just in U.S. relations, but echo globally. If the U.S. doubles down on protectionist walls, slamming its markets shut, the conflict might engulf Mexico and beyond. Questions linger thick in the mist. What retaliatory punches will land? How will America absorb them? And how will volatile world markets reel in response? Carney's ominous vow, also on March 27, 2025. That nothing is off the table, hints at cataclysmic turns. Events could spiral far beyond expectation, a tempest that reshapes fates. Are we truly on the brink of a full-throttle battle between titans? Or might diplomatic magic weave salvation at the 11th hour? The Cold Rush, Canada's leverage in energy and autos valued at billions, poised to jolt the U.S. economy. These tensions will scar deeply, leaving indelible marks. Which power will yield first? Hold your breath as alliances crackle under pressure. What if, amidst this chaos, an unforeseen twist reveals Carney's gamble isn't purely retaliatory, but a calculated play to birth new global dominions for Canada? The air grows thick with anticipation, the scent of diesel and steel in your nostrils, as shadows of uncertainty deepen further. As the dust settles on this brewing storm between Canada and the United States, we saw how Prime Minister Mark Carney's fiery words ignited a spark that could unravel the fabric of North America. The air thick with tension, the scent of potential loss hanging like fog over bustling cities, Carney declared the era of cozy ties with America over, wielding threats of reduced energy flows, automotive sanctions, and agricultural tariffs. But now, in the shadow of April 2nd's retaliation plans, whispered leaks from Ottawa hint at layered tariffs on cars, metals, and crops, while hesitant steps explore new energy deals beyond the U.S. border. Imagine the soft hum of hydroelectric dams in Ontario's icy realms, their cold rush feeding power south, but now under threat of a 25% surcharge or total cutoff. That overwhelming 65 terawatt-hours sent in 2020 40-20% of regional U.S. needs suddenly feels like a fragile lifeline, its potential snap echoing through snowy fields and gridlocked highways. Will Canada pull the plug? That question sliced through social feeds like a sharp blade, igniting debates that left fingers trembling on keyboards, the bitter taste of uncertainty lingering in every post. Yet Ottawa's gaze turns east, seeking solace in European ports and Asian hubs, with Carney's March 27 vow ringing out, "No partner we trust anymore." Energy trump cards, over $70 billion in crude oil alone, plus 9 billion cubic meters of LNG, once a secure bond, now dangle precariously, their export valves twisting in Canada's favor. The cold slap of elevated electricity prices could cripple northern U.S. states, factories grinding to stillness, homes shivering in dimness. Is this the dawn of disruption, where Washington's reliance on Canadian juice becomes a crippling chokehold? Auto lanes hum with the rhythm of cross-border assembly, that $30 billion in parts and vehicles forging unbreakable chains, yet now snarled by rumored tariffs targeting